I'm going to tell you about something that happened to me last summer, and I need you to understand that I'm not the kind of person who believes in curses or ancient evils or things that should stay buried. I'm a graduate student in anthropology. I study cultures, folklore, burial practices. I approach everything with academic skepticism and the scientific method. Or, at least I used to. My name is Sarah Chun. I'm 27 years old, working on my PhD at the University of New Mexico, focusing on indigenous burial practices in the American Southwest. Last June, I received a grant to do fieldwork in a small town in southern Colorado, near the New Mexico border. The town, I'm not going to name it, for reasons that will become clear, has a population of maybe 300 people, most of them descendants of families that have lived there for generations. I'd been referred there by my advisor, who'd heard from a colleague that the town had some interesting historical sites that had never been properly documented. Undisturbed burial grounds, old mission ruins, cave systems that showed signs of pre-Columbian use. For someone writing a dissertation, it was a gold mine of potential research. But before we go any further, I need to ask you something. If you're watching this video, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I know this seems like an odd time to ask, but I need to know this story is getting out there. I need to know that if something happens to me, there's a record. So please like and subscribe. It matters more than you know. I arrived in town on June 15th. The heat was already oppressive, that dry desert heat that makes your skin feel tight and your throat constantly parched. I'd rented a room above the only bar in town, a place called the Dusty Rose that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 1970s. The owner, a woman named Margaret, was friendly enough but made it clear that outsiders weren't exactly common. "You here for the uranium?" she asked when I checked in, eyeing my university credentials with suspicion. "No, I'm an anthropologist. I'm studying historical sites in the area." Her expression changed immediately. Not hostile, exactly, but guarded. "What kind of sites?" "Burial grounds, mostly. Cave systems. Anything with historical or cultural significance." She was quiet for a long moment, studying me. Finally, she said, "You'll want to talk to Tom Begay. He knows the land better than anyone." But Sarah, she used my first name like we were already familiar. Some things are buried for a reason. Remember that. I thanked her and unpacked my equipment. Camera, notebooks, GPS device, ground-penetrating radar equipment I'd borrowed from the geology department. I was prepared for a standard research trip, document sites, take samples where permitted, conduct interviews with local residents about oral histories and traditional practices. I met Tom Begay 2 days later. Margaret arranged it, calling him on an actual rotary phone that was mounted on the wall behind the bar. He agreed to meet me at sunrise the next morning at the edge of town, near where the paved road turned to dirt. Tom was in his late 70s, maybe early 80s, though he moved with the ease of someone much younger. His face was deeply lined, weathered by decades of desert sun, and his eyes were the darkest brown I'd ever seen, almost black. He wore jeans, work boots, and a faded denim shirt with pearl snaps. When he shook my hand, his grip was firm and dry. "Margaret says you want to see the old places," he said without preamble. "Yes, sir. I'm researching burial practices and sacred sites. Anything you'd be willing to show me, I'd be grateful." He looked at me for a long time, those dark eyes seeming to see past the surface. "You believe in respect?" "Of course. I don't mean the word. I mean the practice. You understand that some knowledge isn't meant for everyone? That some places have rules older than your universities?" "I do," I said, and I meant it. "My field has a terrible history of exploitation and cultural appropriation. I'd spent years learning how to approach indigenous knowledge with humility and proper protocols." Tom nodded slowly. "Then I'll show you some things. But you follow my lead. You touch nothing without asking. You photograph nothing without permission. And if I say we leave, we leave. No questions." "Agreed." "Agreed." We drove in his truck, an ancient Ford that somehow still ran, heading east into the desert. He didn't speak much, just pointed out landmarks occasionally. An outcropping where his grandfather used to hunt. A dry wash that ran with water during the monsoons. a cluster of pinyon pines that marked the boundary of what used to be grazing land. After about 40 minutes, he turned off onto a track that was barely visible, more of a suggestion than an actual road. We bounced and rattled for another 20 minutes before he finally stopped near a formation of red sandstone that rose from the desert floor like a broken tooth. "We walk from here," he said. I grabbed my day pack with my camera and notebook, and we set off into the desert. The sun was fully up now, and the heat was building. Tom moved with purpose, following a path I couldn't see, stepping around rocks and vegetation with practiced ease. We walked for maybe an hour. Just when I was starting to wonder if we had any actual destination, Tom stopped at the base of a cliff face. The sandstone here was layered in bands of red and orange and pale yellow, carved by millennia of wind and rare rain into smooth, flowing shapes. "This place," Tom said quietly, "is not on any map. It's not in any of your books or databases. My grandfather showed it to me when I was 15. His grandfather showed him. It goes back as far as our memory goes back." He moved along the cliff face, running his hand over the stone, and I realized he was looking for something. Finally, he stopped and pressed his palm against what looked like solid rock. There was a sound, a grinding of stone on stone, and a section of the cliff face, maybe 4 feet wide and 6 feet tall, shifted inward. A hidden entrance. A door carved so perfectly into the natural stone that it was completely invisible, unless you knew exactly where to look. "Before we go in," Tom said, turning to face me, "I need to tell you what this place is. And I need you to decide if you really want to see it." I nodded, my heart already beating faster with anticipation and a growing sense of unease. "This is a prison," he said. "Not a tomb. Not a burial site. A prison. It was built by the people who were here before my people. Before the Navajo. Before the Apache. Before any of the tribes you've studied. The people who were here first, who knew things we've forgotten. A prison for what? For something that couldn't be killed. Something that had to be contained." He paused, watching my face. "The stories call it different names. Some say goat demon. Some say devil. My grandfather called it by a name I won't speak out loud. But all the stories agree on one thing: it was never human, and it fed on humans when it walked free." I felt a chill despite the heat. "Mr. Begay, are you telling me there's something alive in there?" "I'm telling you there's something in there. Whether it's alive or dead or something in between, I don't know. No one's been inside in 3 generations. My grandfather showed me the door, taught me how to open it, but made me swear never to go in. He said the seal was weakening, that eventually someone would need to check it. Maybe that time is now." This was absurd. Academic Sarah, the skeptic, the scientist, was screaming that this was folklore superstition, a story told to keep people away from a dangerous cave system or unstable structure. But another part of me, the part that had spent years studying how cultures encode real knowledge in mythological language, was listening carefully. "Why show me?" I asked. "Because you're the first outsider who's come here asking the right questions, showing proper respect. And because I'm old and my son died 10 years ago, and there's no one else to pass this to. Someone needs to know. Someone needs to remember." He fixed those dark eyes on me. "But you don't have to go in. You can walk away right now. I'll show you other sites, help with your research, and never mention this place again." I should have walked away. Every instinct I had was telling me this was dangerous, that I was being drawn into something I didn't understand. But I'm an anthropologist. My entire career is built on curiosity, on the drive to understand and document. And standing there in front of that hidden door, with an elder offering to show me something secret and ancient, I couldn't turn away. "I want to see it," I said. Tom nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer, but hoped for a different one. "Then we go in." "But Sarah," he gripped my shoulder, his hand surprisingly strong. "You stay behind me. You touch nothing. And if I tell you to run, you run. You don't ask why, you don't look back, you just run. Promise me." "I promise." He released my shoulder and turned back to the door. He pushed, and it swung inward with that same grinding sound, revealing darkness beyond. Tom pulled a flashlight from his belt, A heavy mag light that looked like it had seen decades of use, and clicked it on. "Stay close," he said, and stepped through. I followed, my own smaller flashlight in hand, and immediately the temperature dropped. The desert heat vanished, replaced by cool air that smelled of stone and earth and something else, something organic and old, like dried leather or ancient paper. The entrance tunnel was narrow, barely wide enough for Tom's shoulders, carved smooth by tools and time. The walls were covered in markings, pictographs, and what might have been writing in a language I didn't recognize. I desperately wanted to stop and photograph them, but Tom was moving forward with purpose, and I'd promised to follow his lead. The tunnel sloped downward, taking us deeper into the rock. I lost track of time and distance, focused only on keeping Tom's back in sight and not tripping over the uneven floor. The air grew cooler and damper. The smell intensified, that organic, ancient scent, now mixed with something mineral and sharp. Finally, the tunnel opened into a chamber. Tom stopped at the entrance, shining his flashlight around the space, and I heard him inhale sharply. "This is wrong," he murmured. I stepped up beside him and looked into the chamber, and my breath caught in my throat. The room was circular, maybe 30 feet across, with a domed ceiling that disappeared into darkness above the reach of our lights. The walls were covered floor to ceiling with more of those pictographs and symbols, layer upon layer of them, like centuries of people had come here to add to whatever protective inscriptions the original builders had created. But it was the center of a room that made my skin crawl. There was a structure there. I don't know what else to call it. It was roughly rectangular, maybe 8 feet long and 4 feet wide, raised about 3 feet off the floor. It looked like a sarcophagus, but it was made entirely of stone that had been carved with such intricate detail that every inch was covered with images and symbols. Chains, actual iron chains thick as my wrist, were wrapped around it, crisscrossing the surface and bolted into the floor at 8 points around the structure. "The chains," Tom whispered. "They weren't there before." "What do you mean?" When my grandfather brought me here, 40 years ago, the tomb was sealed with stone. These chains are new. Someone's been here. Someone's been trying to reinforce the seal." We stood at the entrance to the chamber, neither of us moving closer. I could see now that the chains weren't just randomly wrapped. They formed a specific pattern, a geometric design that repeated around all sides of the tomb. Protection symbols. I'd seen similar patterns in my research, though never executed with this level of precision or obvious desperation. "Mr. Begay," I said quietly, "what exactly is supposed to be in there?" Before he could answer, something moved. Not the chains, not the tomb itself. Something inside the tomb moved. It was subtle, a sound more than a visible movement. A scraping, like stone on stone or bone on stone. It came from within the sealed structure, muffled but distinct in the absolute silence of the chamber. Tom's flashlight beam stayed steady on the tomb, but I could see his hand tightening on the handle. "It's awake," he said, his voice barely audible. "That's impossible. Nothing could survive sealed in stone for..." The sound came again, louder this time. Definitely movement. Definitely coming from inside. And then we heard the breathing. "I need you to stop right now and think about what I'm telling you. I need you to comment below. What would you do in this situation? Would you run? Would you investigate? Would you try to reinforce the seal? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because I'm still not sure if I made the right choice in what happened next." The breathing was deep and slow, like something large drawing air through a constricted passage. It had a wet quality to it, a sound that shouldn't come from anything that had been sealed in stone. With each breath, I could hear a faint rattle, like dried leaves or paper or shed skin moving in the darkness inside that tomb. "We need to leave," Tom said, already backing toward the tunnel entrance. But I was frozen, my flashlight beam fixed on the tomb. Because between the chains, in the gaps where they didn't quite cover the stone, I could see something. Movement. Not random, not the settling of ancient materials. Something was pressing against the inside of the tomb. I could see the stone bulging slightly, could see hairline cracks spreading from the points where the pressure was greatest. "Sarah." Tom's voice was sharp now, commanding. "We leave. Now." I took one step backward, my eyes still on the tomb, and that's when I saw them. Eyes. 2 points of light between the chains, reflecting our flashlight beams back at us. Not the dull reflection of an animal's eyes, but a glow that seemed to come from within. The color was wrong, a yellow-green that hurt to look at, like infection or decay given luminescence. The eyes blinked. I turned and ran. Tom was already in the tunnel, moving faster than I would have thought possible for a man his age. I crashed after him, not caring about the narrow walls or the uneven floor, focused only on getting out. Behind us, from the chamber, came a sound that I still hear in my nightmares. It started as that slow breathing, then shifted into something between a growl and a laugh, a sound that conveyed intelligence and malice and hunger in equal measure. And then we heard the chains rattle, not settling or shifting, rattling like something was testing them, pulling against them. The sound echoed through the tunnel, following us as we ran, mixing with our gasping breaths and pounding footsteps. I don't remember reaching the entrance. My next clear memory is being outside in the brutal desert sun, on my hands and knees in the sand, Tom standing over me with his hand on my shoulder. The hidden door was closed behind us. I could hear him speaking in a language I didn't know, Navajo, probably, or maybe something older, his voice rhythmic and firm. A prayer or a binding or both. When he finished, he helped me to my feet. "You saw it," he said. It wasn't a question. I saw eyes. I saw something moving. "Mr. Begay, that's impossible. Nothing can survive." "It's not surviving. It's enduring. There's a difference." He looked back at the cliff face, at the now invisible door. "The stories say it was never alive in the way we understand life. It was something else. Something that exists in the spaces between living and dead, between sleeping and waking. The people who built that prison didn't kill it because it couldn't be killed. They could only contain it. But the chains, someone added the chains. Recently. Within the last 10 years, I'd guess. Maybe less." Tom's face was troubled. Someone knew the original seal was failing. Someone came here and tried to reinforce it. Who? I don't know. But whoever it was, they didn't tell me. They didn't tell anyone in town that I know of. They came in secret and did what they could. He paused, his jaw tight. "And they're probably dead now." "What? Why would you say that?" "Because that's how it works. The stories are clear. Getting close to that thing, even while it's sealed, even while it's contained, it costs you. It marks you. Whatever reinforced that tomb brought something back with them. Something that would have eaten at them from inside until there was nothing left." I felt cold despite the heat. "Then we're marked too?" "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." Tom started walking back toward his truck, and I hurried to follow. But I grew up with the protections. I know the prayers. I know how to recognize the signs if it starts to take hold. He glanced back at me, you don't have those defenses. We drove back to town in silence. My mind was racing, trying to reconcile what I'd seen with everything I knew about the world, about archaeology, about the physical laws that govern reality. But I couldn't. The eyes were real. The movement was real. The sound of that breathing was real. When we reached the edge of town, Tom pulled over. "You need to leave," he said bluntly. "Tonight. Pack your things and go. Don't come back." "But my research." "Your research will get you killed. Or worse." He turned to face me fully. "Sarah, I showed you that place because I thought you needed to know it exists. Someone has to remember, has to carry the knowledge in case something happens to me. But you don't need to stay here. You don't need to study it or document it or try to understand it. You just need to remember that it's there, that it's contained, and that the containment is failing. If it's failing, shouldn't we do something? Shouldn't we tell someone?" "Tell who? The government? The university? You think they'll believe you? You think they'll leave it alone?" He shook his head. "The only thing worse than that seal failing naturally is someone deciding to break it open deliberately to study what's inside." He was right, and I knew it. But the academic in me was still protesting, still insisting that knowledge was meant to be shared, documented, preserved. "What do the stories say happens if it gets free?" I asked quietly. Tom was silent for a long moment. They say it will remember everyone who ever came near its prison. Everyone who ever looked at it, touched the seal, reinforced the chains. It will hunt them first. And then, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Then it will do what it was doing before it was imprisoned. It will feed. On what? On us. On humans. But not just our bodies. He gestured vaguely at his chest, his head, our essence. Our spirit. Whatever makes us more than just meat and bone. The stories say it leaves the body alive, but empty. A shell that breathes and moves, but has nothing inside anymore. I felt my stomach turn. That's not possible. You saw it move. You saw its eyes. You heard it testing the chains. Tom's voice was gentle but firm. What about that was possible? He was right. I had no response. Go home, Sarah. Write your dissertation about something else. Find a different topic, a different town. Live your life. He reached across and opened my door, a clear dismissal. But remember what you saw. Remember it's there. And if you hear stories about people going missing in this area or acting strange or dying of mysterious causes, remember what could be causing it. Someone needs to remember, in case the time comes when it can't be contained anymore. I got out of the truck, my legs weak and shaky. What will you do? What I've always done. Watch, wait, pray, and hope the seal holds long enough that someone wiser than me figures out a permanent solution. He put the truck in gear. Goodbye, Sarah. I hope we don't meet again. He drove away, leaving me standing on the side of the road in the merciless afternoon heat. I should have listened to him. I should have packed my things that night and left. But I didn't. Instead, I went back to my room, above the bar, and tried to rationalize what I'd seen. Mass hallucination. Gas leaks in the chamber causing shared delusions. Clever trickery by Tom to test my reaction. Anything but the impossible truth that something ancient and hungry was imprisoned beneath the desert, sealed behind failing stone and desperate chains. I lasted 3 more days. 3 days of trying to act normal, of attempting to conduct interviews about innocuous historical sites, of lying awake at night feeling like something was watching me from the darkness. On the 3rd night, I woke up at 2 in the morning with absolute certainty that there was something in my room. I lay there in the dark, not daring to move or turn on the light, feeling a presence at the foot of my bed. I could hear breathing, slow, deep, wet-sounding. The same breathing I'd heard in the chamber. And I could smell something, that organic ancient smell, like dried leather and old paper and decay. I fumbled for my phone on the nightstand, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. When I finally got the light on and turned it toward the foot of the bed, there was nothing there. But on the floor, where the presence had been, there were marks. Not footprints exactly, but impressions in the carpet. 4 of them, arranged in a pattern that suggested something standing on 2 legs. And the impressions were shaped wrong, not like feet, but like hooves. I left at dawn. Didn't say goodbye to anyone, didn't finish my research, didn't pack properly. I just threw my essentials in my car and drove. I didn't stop until I was back in New Mexico, back in my apartment in Albuquerque, surrounded by familiar things and rational explanations. That was 4 months ago. I haven't been back. I haven't tried to contact Tom Begay. I haven't told anyone what I saw, not my advisor, not my fellow grad students, not my family. Who would believe me? But I dream about it. Almost every night, I dream I'm back in that chamber, watching those eyes blink at me from between the chains. And in the dreams, I can see more. I can see through the gaps, see what's inside the tomb. I see a shape that's almost human, but twisted wrong. I see legs that bend backward and end in cloven hooves. I see arms that are too long and jointed in too many places. I see a head that's elongated, almost goat-like, with those infected yellow eyes and a mouth full of teeth that are neither human nor animal. And in every dream, the chains are breaking. 1 link at a time, slowly but inevitably, the iron is giving way. And the thing inside is patient. It's been patient for centuries. It can wait a little longer. Last week, I saw a news story online. A small article, barely a paragraph, about a missing person in southern Colorado. A man named Tom Begay, age 78. Last seen leaving his home 5 days ago. His truck was found abandoned near some BLM land east of town. Search parties found no trace of him. I stared at that article for an hour, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Tom was missing. Tom, who knew the prayers and the protections, who'd spent his whole life watching and waiting. If it could get to him. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should go back, try to find that place again, see if the seal has failed completely. I don't know if I should tell someone, authorities, researchers, anyone, and risk them opening it deliberately. I don't know if it's already too late, if the thing is already free and hunting everyone who ever came near its prison. What I do know is that I'm marked. I can feel it. Sometimes, late at night, I catch that smell, dried leather and ancient paper and decay. Sometimes I hear breathing in the silence of my apartment. And sometimes, when I'm almost asleep, I feel a presence watching me from the darkness, patient and hungry and waiting. I'm telling you this because Tom was right. Someone needs to remember. Someone needs to know this thing exists, in case the containment fails completely, in case it gets free and starts hunting in earnest. You need to know what to look for. The smell, the breathing, the feeling of being watched by something that sees you not as a person, but as food. If this video suddenly disappears, if I stop posting, if you hear that I've gone missing or been found dead in unusual circumstances, remember what I told you. Remember there's something sealed beneath the desert, something ancient and hungry that's testing its chains. Remember that someone added those chains recently, trying desperately to reinforce a failing seal. Remember that Tom Begay is missing, and I might be next. And whatever you do, if you're ever in southern Colorado, if you're ever near a red sandstone cliff that rises from the desert like a broken tooth, don't look for the hidden door. Don't try to find the chamber. Don't go near that tomb. Because the thing inside remembers everyone who looks at it, everyone who knows it exists. And it's patient enough to wait until the chains break and it can hunt you properly. Before you go, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and comment below. Tell me if you've heard similar stories, if you know of other places where things like this are imprisoned, if you have any idea what we're supposed to do when ancient seals start failing and no one remembers how to reinforce them. Tell me I'm not alone in knowing this. Tell me someone else is carrying this knowledge, watching and waiting and hoping the containment holds just a little bit longer. Because I don't think it will. I think the chains are breaking. I think Tom knew it was finally happening, went back to check, and something went wrong. I think the thing he spent his life guarding against finally got free. And I think I'm next on its list. So please, remember this story. Remember there are things sealed in secret places, contained by chains and prayers and knowledge that's dying out with the elders who carry it. Remember that some prisons aren't meant to be opened, some secrets aren't meant to be shared, and some knowledge comes with a price we're not equipped to pay. Remember the tomb. Remember the chains. Remember the eyes that glowed yellow-green in the darkness, watching and waiting and patient beyond human understanding. Remember so that when it finally breaks free, someone will know what it is. Someone will know what we're facing. Someone will know why people start going missing, why they're found alive but empty, shells that breathe and move but have nothing inside anymore. Remember, because I might not be able to tell anyone else. The thing in the tomb is waking up. The chains are breaking. And I can smell that ancient scent right now, even as I'm recording this. I can hear breathing in the silence. It remembers me, and it's coming.